Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the Brett and Matt Show. As always, I'm Matt. He's Brett, and I'm getting over. I don't know. I got a little a little cold or something going on over here, but we're gonna discuss some NBA playoffs. There's been quite a bit of action the last couple weeks here, and some series started to end. And the conference finals actually begin tonight, right? So with that said, we'll kind of take a little look back on the previous series, and our plans are to go into the predictions for these conference finals. But with that, we'll start in the East, and specifically with the Bulls and Cavs. Series went 6 games, with the Cavs winning. I watched a lot of those games, and they were really entertaining. The Bulls, I thought, were a pretty good team. I was kind of concerned. I mean, just because, I mean, at the beginning of the season, I picked the Cavs to beat the Bulls, and I like to say that I'm happy I got that one right. I was nervous though with no Kevin Love, and Kyrie really wasn't much of a factor that whole series because he was so hurt. It got to a point where during some of their games they would actually stick Kyrie on like Mike Dunleavy because he was hurting them so badly defensively. But even an injured Kyrie on the field or on the floor, still able to shoot pretty well. Like if you got a spot or an open look, could probably knock down the shot. But man, his injury really hurt his ability to drive and finish around the rim. But I mean, the Bulls, I guess the other part I liked about the series is obviously they don't like LeBron, and LeBron doesn't like them very much. Made for some pretty hard nosed basketball, and I thought the refs did a good job calling the game and letting the guys play on both sides. But it was a fun, entertaining series, and I just think kind of as an overview, I thought the Bulls kind of just ran out of gas and almost just threw in the towel. I mean, that final game 6, the Cavs bench came off and they were just lighting it up. And
was that the one that Deli was leading the team in scoring, right?
Yes, he was. Matthew Dellavedova. And you know, I and he played some good defense. I mean, just overall it was an entertaining series. Couple of buzzer beaters in back-to-back games. That was exciting. Rose obviously with his crazy shot, and LeBron with the deep 2 or 3 in the corner with time expiring. Both were pretty big shots. But overall, it was a good series, and in my opinion, I mean, I thought the Cavs were the better team, and I guess it helps probably when you have arguably the best player in the world. But what were your thoughts?
Well, let's talk about game 4, right? Bulls up 2-1 coming into that one. That's the game after D Rose made his game winner. It's in Chicago. Chicago, I think, had the lead for majority of that second half. And the Cavs came back, and like you said, they won it on the final play, which, by the way, LeBron told coach to kind of just F off on that one. So this is, I don't even know. Like,
can LeBron win Coach of the Year already too? I
mean, it's weird because, like, I remember obviously when we were talking about the Heat, the team might, like, even if they make the finals, like, we got to fire, Spoelstra or something. They didn't fire him, and then they went on and they won a couple titles over the next 3 seasons after that first one. So is like Blatt in that same sort of situation, or do we all just say, wow, this guy doesn't care, no one on this team respects him already?
I think if they lose the next round to the Hawks, or if they lose in the finals, I could really see him being fired. I could see him being fired, and I could see them being like, okay, LeBron, who do you want us to bring in? Maybe it's a guy like Mark Jackson. I don't know. You gotta, yeah, maybe it's just it's absolutely mind blowing to me because so there are instances where like I feel like I just wonder sometimes. Like prime example, like you look at a guy like Scott Brooks who got fired in Oklahoma City. Um, how many times does the ball just become stagnant and not move? And I just think I just wonder. I think they need a better coach, to be honest. I mean, there it happens in Cleveland too. There are times where the ball just doesn't move around a lot, and maybe that's because LeBron's doing it. But I think um, the team the Cavaliers have is good enough to have an okay coach. I think if they had a really good coach, though, I think it would push them to the next level.
It's weird. I wonder what LeBron's looking for in a coach. I mean, it seemed like I said, at first it was almost like Spoelstra was kind of half thrown under the bus sometimes. Now Blatt. I don't know how he worked with his original coaches when he was in Cleveland and what he thought of those guys. Probably not the best. Like, I just wonder what he's kind of looking for, what kind of coach, or is he just going to be like a, yo, coach, you're here as like a face only. You can accept that, but I'm going to run this team sort of thing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the guy obviously understands the game and he's very knowledgeable, gets probably could be a future coach if he really wanted to be. But it's like, I mean, there still has to be a face there. He can't just be a player coach. That's all I was asking on that is just what he's kind of like looking for. And I don't know for sure. But either way, getting back to the series overall, I mean, he hits that game winner after he tells coach to F off. I'm shooting it, not being the guy to pass it in. And that was, I think, the turning point. If the Bulls go up 3-1, that's going to be pretty hard for the Cavs to come back and get that ball. And I think maybe I could be sitting here and I would be the one getting to brag a little bit, but that's not what happened. My team that I picked at the beginning of the year ended up losing. So congrats to you on that. And I mean, yeah, it's difficult. Obviously, anytime you have a guy like LeBron who can take a game over, and then even when he didn't, I don't know what happened in the game 6, but how a guy like Daly is like the leading scorer on the team and they win. I don't think that necessarily indicates that's something that you can always count on, from the Cavs and their bench and like the role players to kind of carry them when LeBron and Kyrie aren't doing great. Which is going to limit them. If not against the Hawks, it should against whoever they play in the finals. But yeah, I mean, it was a good series. It's actually a lot of these games were good series. Some game winners, a lot of fun, close, exciting games that didn't even come down to game winners. Some game winners that didn't count, which we can get to in this next one as well. But yeah, I don't know. It was a fun series, and I'm just a little sad that my boy doesn't get to continue on, and my boy being, I don't even know. There's no one on that team I care about. Screw Chicago anymore. Go Bucks.
Yeah. So I mean, the other series that happened in the East was it was the Atlanta Hawks versus the Washington Wizards. Had some exciting moments. I mean, obviously, Paul Pierce hit a buzzer beater that same weekend in between those Cavs Bulls games. I mean, ended up getting a switch and had the rookie point guard on him, and 2 other guys tried to close out on him, and Paul Pierce nails the shot. I mean, as time expires, he's kind of been known as the truth throughout his whole career, and I know Brett is not a super big fan of Paul Pierce, but I mean, the guy he's hit some big shots.
What did he say after that? He said he usually likes to save those for some later rounds, right? More important games than the one that he made, which is funny because he didn't make it to the next round.
Well, you know what? I mean, it was tight. The other thing that really hurt the Wizards was that John Wall didn't play that whole series. I feel like it was asking a lot. Especially, I mean, I don't know what Atlanta was doing. I mean, they were the number 1 seed pretty much the whole year in the East. And I don't know. Like, if a coach wins Coach of the Year, can he lose that award for being crappy in the playoffs? Because I feel like he hasn't been that great. Um, I don't know. Maybe that's the problem with jump shooting teams too. Is that if you go cold for a little bit, you run that risk of not falling behind in a series or whatnot. But I guess to be fair to Atlanta, I mean they did move on. Do you do you know if the Cavs were number 2 seed in the East?
No, they're like, oh yeah, are they?
I don't know. I was just thinking at the top of my head because I was like, well, wait a minute. I think in the West, I think it's the 1 versus 2. I was like, I wonder if in the East it's the 1 versus 2.
I thought the Cavs were. I think they were a two. Let's take a look and see if I can find this real quick.
Yeah, I don't know though. I mean, Atlanta got some rhythm back, and they were able to get some more production again from their bench, which helps. So, I mean, they were the number 1 seed for a reason all year. I mean, good ball movement, able to shoot, the 3 ball really well. And that was a big part of them being able to move on in this series.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and the Hawks, they've been honestly. I know they raced out to that early lead, and their Twitter thing had fun when they were on that large winning streak, inserting an extra W into their name every single time they got it, and it stretched out to 15, 16 Ws, whatever it was. But realistically, if you're looking at the Hawks, they've kind of been out of it for like 2 months. So even though they do have that 1 seed, they haven't really been playing like a 1 seed, for the last, 25, 30 games or whatever it may be. In the Wizards, they have some guys in the backcourt too that are really good occasionally. As long as you don't try to shoot a lot outside shots with John Wall. He's a great slasher. And then you got Beal, who can think a little bit more offensively than Wall can. Paul Pierce, mentioned it. He's the truth. That game winner he hit, was that only that was his only shot that he made that game, wasn't it?
I don't know, maybe.
I feel like it was, or maybe it was the one that didn't count. He only made one other shot that game, so that would have been a second one, but obviously it didn't count because the time had already expired.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, either way, I don't know. I think this Hawks Cavs matchup, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That should be a good one. Because both teams, honestly, I think are almost struggling. One with Love being injured, and then Kyrie being injured, and then the Hawks just overall not necessarily being a number 1 type team. So that should be fun. As far as that series went, I honestly didn't get to watch much of the Hawks and Wizards.
I didn't either. Of all of the 3 series, that's probably the one I watched, or 4. I'm sorry, that was the one I watched the least of.
And I think too, if that was the only one that had. Was it that one? I think that's the one that had the lowest rating overall, too, out of those 4. So we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
Most people seem to have been avoiding that series for whatever reason, despite it being, there being a 1 seed in Atlanta. But that might just be something to do with the Atlanta sports and how much they do or don't care about the Hawks franchise. Also kind of sucks because there was some things that happened for the Washington, D.C. area all in like a very short span. After the Wizards ended up losing, and then there was some other stuff. I forget what all transpired. Oh, I think it was the hockey team ended up losing within like 10 minutes. And then, they still have the Redskins, which is kind of sad for them also. So, sorry, Washington. Maybe next year.
Hey, they got that Nationals, though. Baseball.
Yeah, but it's early in the season. We got time before we can start caring about Washington games.
Hey, they got a pitcher from UW-Stevens Point.
It's true.
And they have that Harper guy or whatever his name is. That's really good.
He's good. Kind of a juice bag. But neither here nor there.
So that we'll move on to the West semis where we had the Warriors versus Grizzlies. And I watched a few of these games. Boy, Memphis, they did a good job of taking Steph Curry and Klay Thompson out of their shooting ability, but eventually, I mean, it's hard to do that for, a a stretch of games. I mean, they were able to do it for a couple, but eventually Steph Curry got back to looking like the MVP. And yeah, I mean, it just I feel like series sometimes are about a lot of it's about making adjustments, and um, it started where Golden State wasn't double teaming the post, and they were just getting crushed on the boards and crushed inside by Randolph and Gasol. And then they finally started, you know what, we're going to double team the post, and if Memphis's shooters beat us, well then I guess they beat us. And it ended up being the right adjustments. And like I said, I mean, offensively, Memphis did a really good job of containing Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, but I mean, Tony Allen was dealing with an injury issue, so that's your perimeter defender that unfortunately kind of wasn't doing 100%. And
first team all defense.
First team all defense. Yep, that was the running thing. I mean, I liked Memphis. They're kind of fun to watch because you don't see too many teams that are built the way they are. But ultimately, the Splash Brothers are just too much, and you just when you shoot as well as they do, it's just hard to keep them down for that long. And Memphis just doesn't have the same offensive firepower at all. You start getting down in those threes, and it just becomes really hard to catch up.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing, you mentioned the adjustments too, the Warriors double teaming or not double teaming, but Tony Allen being the big problem what they did was they made him basically useless offensively, which made it really hard for the Grizzlies to score because they basically put Bogut on him, and then they were like, okay, we'll let you shoot if you're open, and Bogut, you just man the paint area anyway, where those big guys are hurting us, and we'll always have basically three defenders down there then guarding the Gasol and Randolph. And there were even times where Tony Allen was kind of underneath the hoop and they couldn't even get it to him in time for what could have or should have been easy layups. So it kind of almost made it hard to play Tony as much, only because it hurt their offense so much that no matter what he was doing defensively, they couldn't really score either. And then those were the couple of games where the Warriors obviously ended up taking the lead, and their guys started playing a lot better once Tony Allen's value overall was decreased. And they have, I think we mentioned it, like all their starters are really good players. They've got a couple of the best shooting, guards in the league. Harrison Barnes can play the 3 or the 4, and he's big enough and athletic enough that he can take his guys in the post. He's a good enough shooter too from mid-range and from longer twos. Draymond Green might have been the best player in the NBA on defense, which a couple of years ago I didn't think would have been a thing, especially for a guy that was drafted where he was at.
And now he looks like he's a max guy.
Mm-hmm. And then so they've got a lot of skill and talent. They got some guys coming off the bench too, and I think that's kind of what gives them such an advantage, is that when you start even going to the subs, like you can count on those guys to continue playing at least at a decent level. It's not much. I mean, it's a drop off obviously going from MVP to whoever's coming in for him, but you're not really worried about whoever's coming in off the bench for him. And then for the Grizzlies, their 3-point shooting is terrible, and it has been terrible for years. I mean, you mentioned how they're how they're built, and like what makes them tick. And obviously that's the big guys down low and their defense. But at the same time, you mentioned it, I think it was yesterday or the day before when we were talking about how most of these teams, or a lot of these teams that are left, are like heavy 3-point shooting teams.
Oh yeah.
And that's obviously, something that a lot of teams are figuring out now, is that your most efficient shots are going to be your 3-pointers, and then basically your layups and like inside post kind of stuff when you're around the rim. So the Grizzlies don't have that element to their game, and that's been lacking for a long time. And I think that's been what's kind of kept them, from really making an honest, true run, is not having any sort of real perimeter threats outside of maybe one guy here and there, but they don't really have that element to the game at all.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's probably the big thing that actually did them in. But then, so the last game, that was the last series in the semifinals, was a really good series, went 7 games. and it was the Clippers versus the Rockets. So I think the Clippers really played a lot better than anyone thought they would. I remember thinking that their bench was really going to hurt them going into that series. And I gotta admit, I mean, for the majority of the games, I was proven wrong, and the Clippers bench played very well, actually, for the most part. Austin Rivers played good. Yeah, he had like, I don't even know how many points. I think it was high 20 points he had, but I mean, they were just actually getting some production from their bench, which was something different. And Houston just, I don't know. Houston just, they seem to have one philosophy, and that's offensively, they just drive it with James Harden, and he kicks it to a 3-point shooter and hope that he makes it. Or James Harden drives and wants to get fouled. Yeah, it was an entertaining series, though. I mean, the one part that sucked about the series was both teams implementing the hack of whoever philosophy. Not sure how the NBA fixes that. But DeAndre Jordan just, I don't understand. Like, if you're that talented at basketball, just spend a few months like this summer practicing free throws. Because one, it's got to be embarrassing for you to be on national TV looking like a fool, missing all these free throws. And two, like, they're just the free points. And same with Dwight Howard, who is not much better. And I got to give a shout out to a guy Brett likes to pick on every time he shoots up a three. Josh Smith was making threes.
Hold on. I think we can all pick on Josh Smith whenever not just me. I think everybody does that. Okay? Nobody wants to see him shooting threes. I don't think his teammates want to see him shooting threes. But he had that game that won them the game with James Harden on the bench, which probably would have sealed the deal, right? Would that have been game 4 for the Clippers had they won that?
Yep. Yeah, that would have sealed it. It was in LA. Harden and a lot of the starting unit was playing like garbage. And the backups all got him back in the game, and McHale just decided to leave him in, which, you know, you have a big-time guard, you know, finish runner-up in the MVP voting, and you leave him on the bench. That's a ballsy move by McHale, I think, especially in a closeout game. If they don't win, they're done. He would probably have some questions to answer if you know, they lose that game, but gotta give it to him. He went with the guys that were playing well, and it really paid off. And I was thinking in my head, because the Clippers could have closed it out in Game 5, and they didn't. Which that game it was in Houston. They knew. You know, I was listening to some radio, and Blake Griffin even said they were playing as if, you know, they had, you know, another bullet in the chamber. They knew that the Game 6 is going to be back in LA. And then to collapse in Game 6 and have it go to Game 7 back to Houston, I was like, there's no way they're winning this. Like, you just collapsed at home. You think you're going to win on the road? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I remember you asked me too. I think it was after Game 5. You're like, so how about Houston? And I think my words were, Houston's done. Who cares? I believe that's what I told you. And obviously for most of Game 6, it looked like I was going to be right, and then I was not. So good on them, you know, for having that fight. I mean, I think in a elimination game like that, to be down, what were they, 22 or something like that in the third, and like 18 at some point at the beginning of the fourth, a lot of people probably just kind of say, almost just kind of start going through the motions and just getting their season over with. But, you know, obviously that showed a lot of that toughness. And I think a guy like he's been to the finals before. And I don't think he would ever want to give up on that. I don't know, Dwight seemed to be playing a lot better too around the rim. I don't think we've honestly given him enough credit for some of his play outside of, you know, free throw shooting, but being, you know, a rim protector is obviously very important defensively. And he's still getting the rebounds and scoring some points too. He's a guy that obviously a lot of guys in the league, not even us. I mean, I like to give him some shit once in a while too, but never to his face. Obviously, one, I've never met him. Two, I'm not stupid. Debatable, but I mean, you got guys like Kobe calling him out, and you got guys like Kevin Durant calling him out, and all this other stuff. And even through all that, he's actually been playing pretty decently lately. So, good on them. It kind of sucks that they don't have their point guard Beverly available for this upcoming series, because that honestly, I think that might have been something that could have helped push them over the top at least, or at least make it more competitive. With the Warriors. And we're obviously not discussing that yet, but congrats on them. It's also interesting to note, too, I believe every underdog in this series had a 2-1 lead, right? And then they ended up losing. All the favorites ended up winning, which is kind of funny, kind of unique. Don't know how often that exactly happens.
I don't know the numbers.
All of them have a deficit.
It probably happens more often than it doesn't, just because that's the whole point of the 7-game series is the better team should win. Yeah, I mean, it was exciting. I feel bad for Chris Paul. He played his best, or he tried his hardest, I felt like. At some point, you just got to get frustrated and just be like, because I feel like he's not a guy. I mean, sure, money's great and all that, but I feel like he's a guy that really wants a ring. And at some point, I just feel like, I don't know, if I was him, I would want a situation where I have a better opportunity to win.
You don't think he's got that in LA?
No.
Why not?
Because Doc, the coach, is a great coach. Doc, the GM, is not a very good GM.
You mean bringing in his own son might not have been necessarily the best idea?
It wasn't even him that killed him. It was when they brought in like Spencer Hawes and they didn't play him the whole season, and he didn't buy into what Doc wanted him to buy into, which was being more of a shooter and be able to stretch the floor so DeAndre and Blake could do their thing. And that's the other thing I had to touch on. Blake Griffin, he's a heck of a player. He's really turned into an awesome basketball player. I just feel like I don't know. I mean, the Clippers need more, and now they have to decide if they want to pay DeAndre. I mean, I don't know. What?
I was gonna say, in his last deal, he made good money when his averages were only like 8 points a game and like 6 rebounds. Now he's averaging double figures in both.
He's one of the best centers in the league. Now, I mean,
between what he brings defensively and then obviously protecting the paint and all that, he's a great rebounder as well, offensive, defensive. And I mean, his offensive skill set's obviously a little limited. It's not like he's stretching guys out at all, or nailing his free throws, even like something simple. But at the same time, like he's got some value, obviously, because I think if teams are going to just keep hacking you, that's going to get you into the bonus. I mean, even if you're not getting fouled, or if you get subbed out then and your other guys have to come in, they'll start hitting their free throws. And you get some other guys in foul trouble too occasionally. So, I mean, he's got some value there. I mean, it's not necessarily like a quantifiable thing like, oh, he's great. He shoots, 45% from this area or anything like that. But, I mean, it's going to be hard for them, I think, to try to keep him and Blake and Chris Paul all together and still have pieces around them. I mean, J.J. Redick had that one game where he was on fire. He didn't do that enough, I don't feel like.
No, he doesn't. He's a very good spot-up shooter, but as soon as, he's asked to – I mean, he had that one game where it was uncharacteristic, and he was able to, shoot off the dribble and stuff like that. As soon as you more often than not make him do that, he isn't as effective. So that's what I mean. I just feel like the Clippers – I don't know. I feel like their best shot might have been this year, and I don't know what they're going to do going forward.
Draft Frank Kaminsky.
He's not going to be there.
Straight up.
So with that said, we'll move on to our our preview of the conference finals, and we'll do some series predictions. So we'll start in the, not that I want to call it. Nah, I'm just gonna say it. A little less exciting in the East, I think, between the Cavs and the Hawks. Um, I don't know. It's the Hawks. Obviously, their coach comes from the whole Popovich coaching tree, so he really emphasizes ball movement a lot. Which, not to go back too far about the Bulls Cavs series, but there were so many times where they got like 24-second or shot clock violations. I'm like, really? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's not like it happened once or twice, like in the entire series. It would happen 2 or 3 times every game. Come on. But anyways, back to where I was going with that is that the Hawks are gonna have a lot of ball movement. Something that I feel like the Cavs haven't necessarily seen as much going into these playoffs. I expect. I don't know how much I can expect from Kyrie if he's not 100%. I hate to say that. I think LeBron's gonna have to put a lot of it on his shoulders again, but I don't know. Someone's gonna have to. It'll be interesting to see what the Hawks do defensively, because not sure. I mean, what are they gonna do? Stick Carroll on LeBron?
Yeah, he's actually got, I think, the ability, as well as just about anyone in the East. I mean, perhaps even outside in the West. He's that type of defender, I think, more than anyone, that's going to be able to like kind of body James up and keep with him and at least make it difficult for him. Outside of maybe like a Kawhi Leonard or somebody like that. He's at least got the ability to do that, so that's probably what they'll end up doing. It'll be interesting too to see how they line up. I mean, with LeBron, sometimes they'll have him be the 3, and then sometimes they'll have him be the 4 defensively, which means he's going to have to try to body up somebody like Millsap, which obviously is going to take more of a toll on him than, say, guarding somebody like a Carroll, who would be more or less a perimeter type player instead of banging down in the post, which for LeBron kind of sucks, because I'm sure he doesn't feel like banging down in the post, but the way that they're kind of created now, and especially without Love, he might have to do that more often.
Although Tristan Thompson played really well, I thought, last series for them. And they started Thompson and Mozgov next to each other, and I feel like they could probably do that again in this series if they want to. No offense to Noah or Taj Gibson.
And Gasol, when he was playing?
Gasol offensively is good, defensively not so much. But Millsap and Horford were both all-stars this year. So they should theoretically be really good. Should be a fun series. Once again, I wish Kyrie was healthy, because it'd be fun to watch Jeff Teague go against Kyrie. Feel like the X factor is I think a big X factor is going to be how well Kyle Korver plays. If he's shooting lights out, it's gonna make things a little hard on the Cavs. But I guess if you want to give an X factor to the series as well, I mean, both teams have, I feel like, pretty good benches, and I feel like their benches, whichever bench is going to play better, probably will give the edge to that team. Ultimately, I know for myself, I am going to be picking the Cavs. I picked them against the Bulls. I picked them to get to the finals. I'm not going to change my mind now. I guess I just think if you have arguably, Steph Curry won the MVP, and I don't care. If you have arguably the best player in the world, I feel like that's hopefully going to be a big enough difference for the Cavs to win. But I'm actually going to say I think the Cavs will win the series in 6 games.
In 6?
In 6.
I think it'll be kind of interesting to see, like you said, what Kyrie's up to if he's actually healthy. Because there's not really a guy that you can truly switch and try to hide him on defensively. Because if you start doing that, then that means LeBron, depending if they play big ball, small ball type stuff, is going to have to be guarding him, either LeBron or J.R. Smith, who's a little bit of a ball watcher, not a great defender either. Is going to have to try to chase Corver around, which is going to get them tired on the offensive end. Then who guards Teague as well, who's obviously a really good point guard.
Yeah.
Guy that we wish we signed on our team up in Milwaukee.
No, yeah. I still wish that.
So
I guess something I didn't bring up that I just thought of was, so last series they brought JR off the bench and actually started Shumpert. I think if I were them, I would do that again in this series, just because it was nice having JR come off the bench and be able to, put up points.
Mm-hmm. And it'll be fun. I think it'll be a lot of different different starting lineups and different adjustments. I mean, you mentioned that too with Warriors, Grizzlies. For what happened last round, I think it'll be fun to see. Cleveland's probably the team that's going to be more or less the team that's going to be switching up their lineups depending on how they feel they match up. And it'll be fun to see what Atlanta does after game 1 and game 2, to see if they switch some things up. Then if it's either going right for them or if it's going wrong. I don't know. I got the best player in the league, the Cavs. The team that's the 1 seed but has been playing like a 1, but they do offer some good matchups against the Cavs, especially on that pick and roll. What they did is, throughout the regular season, they just kind of blitz them. If there's a pick and roll, you make it tough on them. You don't just head or anything. You just run out and keep stretching it out a little bit, which makes it difficult. And with Kyrie ailing at the moment, and not necessarily guys at the center and power forward spot for the Cavs that are going to stretch their guys out, you don't have to worry about having a guy drive to the lane because you still got guys there. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go Hawks in 7. I don't know why. That's a bad decision. It's a bad decision, and I'm making it go 7 games because I don't think it's a smart decision. So, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick with it just because I want to lose last round. We're going to lose eventually.
Fair enough. So then the other matchup for the Western Conference final is the Rockets versus Warriors. Should be an exciting series. Honestly, looking at these two teams, I feel like they both have fairly deep benches. Obviously, the Warriors are probably the better shooting team. But I think the Rockets, some people keep saying that the Rockets got lucky, and yeah, maybe they did get lucky against the Clippers, and everyone keeps saying that the Clippers are the better team. But looking at it, I don't know. Like, both the Clippers, and this is what makes the West so hard, both the Clippers and the Rockets present challenges to the Warriors. I'm definitely interested to see how James Harden plays, because he mentioned in his post-game interview after Game 7 that he felt like the Rockets were overlooked, and he felt like he was overlooked for MVP. Well, this is your chance. The team that has the MVP that beat you out, you get to play against them, and for an opportunity to play in the finals. What better way to make a big time statement that you should be the MVP instead? So I mean, just that matchup alone just kind of has me really excited. I don't know, man. I don't even know where to start with this series. Both teams like to shoot the 3 ball a lot. We'll see. I mean, you've even got a pretty decent center versus center battle between Howard and Bogut. I don't know. It should be a fun series. Both teams like to shoot 3-pointers a lot. Could get high scoring. God, like you said, in picking, I really want to pick the Rockets. You should go with your points while I think about this if I'm really gonna make this decision.
All right, sounds good. I think it'll be fun to watch again. Where and who Harden ends up guarding. I mean, is he going to be the guy that chases Klay Thompson are on the court, or just should they go with probably their better defender, especially edge defender, and Trevor Ariza, and stick him down there? And then you got to put probably James Harden on, a guy like Harrison Barnes, who doesn't offer quite the same as tough of a matchup. A little bit taller, like longer body, but obviously he's not going to have to expend as much energy trying to chase Klay around. But then you're still going to have a guy like Jason Terry or what's the other guy's Prigioni, I think his name is.
Hey, he is a little fighter, that guy. I tell you.
Come on, you're overmatched though if they're trying to guard Steph Curry, both of them. So I don't know. I just think overall there's going to be more matchup problems for Houston's defense than there are for Golden State, who, obviously has. I think they have one of the better off defenses in the league too, and I know that was something.
They have a very good defense.
Steve Kerr came in and they made sure that they play some defense. They got one of the better defenders in the league, and Draymond Green. And no one else on the team is really a slouch either defensively. So I think for the simple fact that I think it'll be tougher for Houston to match up with their defense versus the Warriors' offense and the sort of problems that will create, I would go with the Warriors. And I'm going to say it's going to be 5 games. I'm going to say it's a 5-game series for Warriors. Yeah.
Why don't you just go with the sweep?
Well, I almost predicted that in the finals last year, which would have been close. But I didn't. I don't know. It's just, the Rockets are obviously a good team. They're here for a reason. They've got, the ability to win some games. And we saw it with, the Grizzlies, that if you can turn it on defensively and you can hold the Warriors down for a game or two. But I just think over the long haul, and as good as they are doing their adjustments, is that I don't think, Houston really has a shot in a 7-game series. It won't even get to 7, like I said, though. I'm just going to say 5. Now you're like, well, damn, 5.
Everything says the Warriors should win. You look at how sloppy the Rockets played against the Clippers. They turned the ball over a ton. I should pick the Warriors. But
here's one thing you got going for you if you're going to go with Houston. And it literally means absolutely nothing. History means nothing for what's going to happen now. But in the last 30 years, there have only been like 8 teams or something like that, or 9 teams to win a championship in the NBA over those 30 years. And of the 4 remaining teams, the only franchise to do so,
Rockets,
Houston. So, assuming we get some sort of non-parity thing going on, Houston might be the NBA champions.
That's true. You know what? I'm picking Houston. I'm gonna say in 6.
6. Houston in 6.
Houston in 6. The reason I say 6 is because if they're not going to win the closeout game on their home court, they're not going to win the series. That's just
going back to Golden State for a Game 7 is probably
probably not going to work in their favor. Just saying. Basketball is one of those sports where home court makes a big difference, and I'm telling you right now, if Game 7 against the Clippers happen to be in LA instead of Houston. I don't think Houston probably wins that game. I think home court makes a big difference. Which obviously now that I'm saying that, Warriors have home court advantage, so it sounds kind of silly, but I think somehow, some way Houston will win this in 6. But yeah, I guess that's my prediction.
I think you're crazy, but hey, I picked Atlanta and the Bulls to beat the Cavs, so I'm probably just as crazy.
Fair enough. Those are our previews for the East and West conference finals. So sure, next week we'll have some reflection on the playoffs and other stuff going on in the sports world. So anything else you got for this podcast?
The things tonight, right? The
lottery. Yep.
Lottery. What time is that at?
It might have just started. Not entirely sure.
We should look. I want to before
Yep,
we head off. I'm gonna head over to
online.
ESPN, or if you can head over to ESPN and see if they've got anything on that yet.
Let's see. It says watch live. Yeah, let's
My
see.
computer has no interest in going to open any other website right now.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's officially started yet, but yeah, it's true. The lottery is on. People with their teams, hoping to be able to snag, get a higher pick. It's time. I mean, I know you're in Indiana down there, and Pacers have a 0.8% chance of getting the number one pick.
So not so good. If only I like our Bucks team. It was fun this year, but damn it, I kind of wish we would have just tanked. We lost Jabari. Why'd we have to go play good basketball? We could have got a top pick, got a high end guy, and then next year we'll make our run next year.
Well, you see, just Jason Kidd's just too good of a coach, Brett.
All right, we're done with this conversation.
What? Why can't you admit that he's a good coach?
I have admitted he's a good coach.
You know how much better the Cavs would be if they had Jason Kidd as their coach?
I bet LeBron would actually respect him since he played the game at a high level.
Yeah. Probably.
But, anyway, keep an eye out for that. Anyone that nobody's watching this, we can see that. So, but we'll have that probably up on our Facebook page. We'll mention something about what the draft lottery is at. And if you guys want to make a comment there and have some discussion on that, we can do that too.
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, I think that's it. Thank y'all for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next week.